This video is brought to you by channel partner 4 years running Squarespace. They've once again re-signed the channel for another year, helping me live my dream career just like they help millions of other people with their dream careers, their personal projects, their hobbies, their community building. It all happens through Squarespace's intuitive website creation and hosting tools, so to learn more about that, stick around to the end of the video. When Pacific Drive was first revealed, we kind of all assumed incorrectly that it was basically a survival horror game in a car, which to be fair, sounds like a sick premise and someone needs to make that ASAP. Pacific Drive is not that. As developer Ironwood Studios began showing more of the game off last year, it became clear that Pacific Drive is not a survival horror game in a car, but rather a survival game in a car. It's not about the judicious management of limited resources, curated set-piece sequences, or zombies trying to eat your brains. It is instead a game focused on expedition-style missions into a hostile zone, where you'll be able to collect seemingly endless resources that you can then bring back to your garage to progress through various tech trees, upgrading and maintaining your car so that you can keep going back out there to do it again and again. So already, I know that description is going to push away a bunch of people who don't like survival games. It's a genre that can be quite grindy, quite onerous, quite manual in the way that it wants you to do things, and I want to say right now that if that's how you feel about survival games, then I suspect there's very little chance you are going to like this. Pacific Drive is surprising in its construction because it seems like a game that's all about the vibes, and it has almost like a mass market appeal, like Sony picked it up as a PS5 exclusive, and the trailers are very cinematic and the setting is fucking cool. You get the sense that this would be designed in a way that would make it accessible to most people, even those that don't love the survival genre. But it's definitely a survival game, and the rough edges that often define that genre haven't been smoothed back all that much. You collect a lot of resources, your tools are really fragile, your car breaks down really easily, at least early on. The task of building and maintaining components is finicky, and the menu and UI is not what I would call world-class user experience. It is highly unlikely that Apple's next iOS updates will borrow from the Pacific Drive school of fonts, icons, and menu navigation. Having said that, if you can push past all of that stuff as I did with my 3 to 4 hours with the game, you're gonna find something that is weird in all the right ways, something that is compelling and intriguing, and something with a lot of handholds for you to grip onto. Maybe for you it'll be the narrative, which is interesting and well voice acted and delivered at a great pace. Maybe it'll be the exploration, world design, and hostile entities roaming each environment, totally unique in both function and form. Maybe it'll be the visual style, which manages to marry both idyllic natural settings and chilling paranormality and brutalism. I suspect for many though that it'll be your relationship with your car, the broken down piece of shit jalopy that you need to nurture back to health like a deer you rescued from a bear trap. This is your mobile base of operations, your life raft, your getaway car. The relationship we have with our mounts in games is very special, and Ironwood understood this to the point where they essentially built an entire game around it, and even though I've only spent a few hours with my car, I love my car, and I would die to protect it. Any game that is able to get you to that point in such a short span of time has clearly got a hell of a lot going for it. Pacific Drive begins here, on the right side of a gigantic wall erected to keep people out and something far worse in. It's not exactly clear why you're in this vicinity, but there's obviously a reason as you've been given a map and some instructions. The roads here are very welcoming, as is the landscape you're driving through. It's in these opening moments that Pacific Drive erects one of the major pillars of its visual style, that being dense, verdant Pacific Northwestern woodland. It's a simple aesthetic, but a really beautiful one. As a canvas, it's effortlessly moody and brooding, and the shadows that exist between each of the trees allow for some striking lighting effects when the bioluminescence of your foes kicks in. This is not a game that is beautiful up close. Textures are fairly flat, ground clutter is low, there's no ray tracing. In fact, I don't think reflective surfaces of any type exist here, but Pacific Drive is not about those finer details. It's about the expansiveness of the setting, the fog drifting between the pines, the faint glow in the distance that may be a hostile anomaly, or it may be a signal tower beckoning you to a rich cluster of discarded resources. In all of these aspects, Pacific Drive excels, achieving a striking visual style and sense of place that immediately draws you in. Speaking of drawing you in, that first leisurely drive on the right side of the wall quickly sours when a mysterious force literally picks up your car and sucks you into some void. When you awaken, your car is gone, and you are very clearly on the wrong side of the wall. Hence all the creepy glowing shit inching towards you with what you have to assume is ill intent. A quick tutorial for the basics of on-foot movement gets you to grips with the controls, and after a few bends, there she is. The worst, most run-down piece of shit car you've ever seen in your life. But as beat up as she is, she's yours now, and she's your only ticket out of this mess. Like they say, you gotta dance with the one that brung ya. Luckily, she's got it where it counts, right? Right? No, she absolutely does not. This is me trying to turn left. It turns out that when you first get this car, it's not an ambi-turner. The reason for this is fairly simple. Even though I had just replaced the tire before driving it, it fell off again without me noticing, so I was essentially driving with 3 wheels. This is where some of the arduousness of Pacific Drive starts to make itself felt. Right here in these opening moments, your car, even when it does have 4 wheels, handles like absolute dog shit. It has the turn arc of an oil tanker, it feels like you're driving on ice, it brakes too suddenly and accelerates too slowly. Your wood-powered station wagon is the video game equivalent of trying to drive the Cybertruck off-road. Except, you know, your station wagon looks better. This handling is a feature, not a bug. I assume it's going to handle better later on as I upgrade the car, but for now, it's like driving a couch precariously balanced on top of a shopping cart, and I wouldn't have it any other way. The ungainly handling makes every inch of the landscape you cross feel earned, and even simple things like driving through a gate become satisfying when you manage to execute them without taking half the gate with you. Spoiler alert, I was not able to do that most of the time. Another aspect of this arduousness is the fact that my wheel came off. That can and will happen a lot, and later on, when you're out on expeditions and you don't have a spare tire, you're pretty fucked. We'll get into that a little bit more later on, but Pacific Drive is not a relaxing game by any stretch. From the enemies accosting you, to the challenging terrain, to the simple wear and tear of your car and the resource grind required to sustain it, Pacific Drive is about inconvenience and discomfort. The ability to push through those moments are the best and most rewarding moments in the game, but you have to be up for that initial shock to the system when you realize just how badly damaged your car is and how many steps will be involved to get it roadworthy again. A lot of that will happen back at the garage, or as most Sislak calls it, the car hole. You will arrive here at the end of your maiden voyage, and look, I'm not going to sugarcoat this. This is where things are really going to come unstuck for a lot of people. When you arrive, a bunch of voices on the radio tell you that this is an abandoned lab that needs to be brought back online. There's some markers telling you to press some buttons, but the quest display, the UI, the instructions, it's not exactly clear what you're supposed to be doing, and the lack of clarity quickly builds up when it comes time to begin crafting, moving resources from one place to the other, picking things up with your hands versus putting them in your backpack, inspecting things versus scanning things versus opening things versus repairing things versus replacing things. Through a combination of really inconsistent control mapping, over-complex UI, and unclear instructions, Iron would have created one of the most disorienting user experiences I've encountered in a survival game, and I actually play quite a few survival games at this point. It's a genre I've come to love over the last few years, so I have comparison points, and yeah, Pacific Drive is extremely unwelcoming despite the game's best efforts to ease you into all of this. It does get better though, for sure. I actually played through the build twice due to some recording errors, and the second time around it clicked. Things were making sense, but even then it never felt good. You can look at Subnautica as an example of a user experience that is a bit onerous, but it was always clear to pass, and it had very consistent rules governing the control mapping. Valheim is very minimalist in its menus and UI. Ore and coal go in the smelter, metal bars come out. Doesn't get any simpler than that. Here it's like press LB to scan the thing, but don't hold it too long or it'll bring up a menu. Press right trigger to detach a wheel. Press RB to pick up a new wheel. Press right trigger to put the new wheel on. Open the menu, select the repair putty, equip that with Y. Press the right trigger to apply it to the busted component, and on it goes. Like I said, it's fine if you're willing to push through it and get your head around all this stuff, but I suspect that at least a few people will just nope out at this point, which is a real shame because I think this game has a hell of a lot going for it. Anyway, the garage. It's this physical manifestation of a tech tree. You get there and there isn't much going on, but as you mount successful expeditions and bring back more resources, you're going to be able to build more things at that base that will let you build more things for your car. The preview build didn't let us get too far into that, but I could see that there was a lot waiting for me, and I was very keen to get into that stuff because the trailers make it look very cool. Ultimately though, it is about getting out into the wilderness so you can find a way to escape this hellscape. You've got a nav computer at the garage that lets you plan your expeditions. You'll select a target location, charge your car's batteries, fuel her up, pull her out of the car hole, and you're on your way. Expeditions are really about two things: uncovering the mystery that lays at the heart of Pacific Drive, and collecting more resources that can be used to push you deeper into the exclusion zone's interior. The mystery side of things is really good, actually. As soon as you arrive in the zone, you're greeted by two voices over the radio who are very surprised to learn that you are there. It had been many years since anyone had breached the wall, so the fact that you managed to pull it off is a big deal. Furthermore, these voices on the radio are pretty sure that your car isn't just a car, but is instead a remnant, a paranormal entity that ensnares unsuspecting peons like yourself. There's this great line in the dialogue where the guy's like, maybe you're already feeling the effects of its control. Are you finding yourself fixating on the car maybe? He asked this after I just spent like 45 minutes repairing and upgrading my car, which obviously is the whole point of the game, so the writers really pincered us with that one. But yeah, it's a cool setting. The zone is like the paranormality of Remedy's control, combined with the alienness of Half-Life's Combine technology. You don't know what happened here to produce all this weirdness and instability, but you want to know. And that's what spurs you forward, while the very strong voice cast sprinkles breadcrumbs before you during each new expedition. Expeditions are very freeform, at least so far. You arrive at a section of the map peppered with all manner of benign and hostile landmarks. Trailers abandoned by scientists who had earlier tried to study the phenomena of the exclusion zone are a great place to pick up easy materials. The abnormality tracking towers are a great source of plasma, so long as you manage to avoid the electricity still coursing through them. Wrecked cars on the side of the road might be handy for a spare tire or some scrap metal. Just make sure they're not sitting in the patrol path of, I don't know, whatever the fuck you call these things. The landscape itself is very hostile. At various times, columns of earth will jut out all of a sudden. Totally fine if they're off to the side, but when these things start popping up out of the middle of the road when you're traveling 80 miles an hour, they're gonna wreck your shit pretty quickly. There's also these giant buzzsaw things that just sweep back and forth across a huge stretch, or areas engulfed in radioactive energy, or randomly occurring energy conductors that just pop up out of nowhere. I'm really early in the game, and I've already seen over a dozen creepy, dangerous things that are intended to make every journey very hazardous, and I'm confident that things are going to get a hell of a lot more fucked up the deeper I get into the exclusion zone. In this way, Pacific Drive does provide a very tense and at times a very scary experience that only becomes more tense and more scary when your car loses a wheel and you no longer have the ability to turn left. But in addition to being really tense and really scary, it's also at times really exciting. The way that each expedition ends is awesome. You see these things on the map called anchors, you drive over to them, and they're usually in some pretty sketchy spots, so you need to dodge enemies in order to grab them. You haul ass back to your car and put them in this device in your passenger seat that will consume them and power a reactor that will jump you out of the zone. You have to collect a few of these anchors before the exit point becomes available. When it does, you activate it, which creates this massive pillar of light in the distance that you need to race towards, because at that point the stability of the entire zone collapses and things really go to shit. The result is this massive spike in hazards trying to stop you from getting where you need to get to, and it's this very metal ride or die race to this pillar of fire, hoping that you reach it before the singularity reaches you. And that is Pacific Drive, or at least a very small part of it. I played plenty of previews, and most of the time you get a good sense of what an overall experience has in store for you. You play one level of Immortals of Avium, for example, and you know what the rest of the game is. Here though, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot more waiting for us deeper in the exclusion zone. That tech tree is big. The number of car upgrades I've seen in the trailers are numerous. In just a few short hours, I've already seen so many hostile environmental elements. Either Ironwood are kind of front-loading things, or they have a very deep reserve to rely on, and I actually suspect it's the latter. The jank and awkwardness of the UI and menus is a bit of a bummer, but I think the rest of the package does have enough pull to get you past that, or at least it did for me. I'm all in on this, I really am. I think it's stark and eerie and fascinating and just cool. I mean, I love it. It's hitting on February 22nd for PC and PS5. Be sure to check back for a full review, because as stacked as February is, this one is very high on my list. I want to take a moment to offer a very special thank you to this video sponsor, Squarespace. It is no exaggeration to say that Squarespace were instrumental to my ability to go full-time on YouTube. 4 years ago now, they signed as a long-term sponsor for the channel. That gave me the confidence to quit my job and take a crack at this full-time. No word of a lie, Squarespace backed me early, and with that support, I was able to make a go of it. 4 years later, I'm still here, and so are they, because over the break, they signed on for another year with the channel. This is their 4th consecutive year being a long-term partner, and I really can't thank them enough because their support makes what I do possible. But that's kind of Squarespace's whole deal. They help people turn their dreams into reality. Many of you will have some sort of hobby or passion that you'd like to pursue as a career, but it's hard to know where to begin. Well, a lot of the time, a website is a really good place to start. If you're a photographer, a website is where you can showcase your portfolio. If you're a career counselor, then a website is going to be how people can find you and learn about what you do. If you sell custom designed clogs, then a website is going to be your shop front. Whatever it is you want to do, Squarespace's tools can help make it happen. Their intuitive website creation tools do not require any sort of background in web design. You just log in, select a template, customize it quickly and easily, and in no time at all, you've got yourself a professional looking website. What about booking appointments for clients? Well, Squarespace supports that too, with their calendar and booking features. What about e-commerce and payments? Well, yeah, of course, Squarespace supports that as well, meaning you can set up an online storefront in no time at all. There's so much more, from advanced SEO tools to detailed analytics, and all of it is so easy to use. That's how Squarespace manages to help so many people realize their dreams. They break down the technology barrier, allowing you to immediately connect with customers and clients so you can build the business or career you've always wanted. To get started, visit squarespace.com, and if you want to get serious, visit squarespace.com/skillup to get 10% off your purchase of a website or a domain name. A huge thank you to Squarespace for their many, many years of support. Looking forward to many more ahead.